you are planning a trip to Europe this summer, then you have clicked on the right video, because I, a Southern European, will be sharing my top tips and advice for traveling Europe, specifically during the summertime, but most of these things apply year-round. Also, I just want to note that this is not going to be city-specific advice and recommendations, nor country-specific. This is more about the practicalities and logistics about traveling around Europe, things to look out for, and common mistakes that I see people making. The biggest mistake I see people making all the time is trying to fit too much in too little time. You either need to expand the amount of time you're in Europe, or you need to be a bit more selective and make some sacrifices about which places you want to visit. I'm sorry, but it's not realistic to visit Rome one day, Florence one day, then go to Budapest the next day, stay there for like one night, next day you're in Prague, and then you're in Madrid the day after. You could possibly do it. I'm not saying that it's not doable, but you're just going to be hopping from city to city, from place to place. My advice to you would be to be a little bit more selective with where you want to go, and be more open to seeing less places, because seeing less places doesn't equal doing less things. And I really don't think you need to go to every single village, town, city on the map. I do understand the excitement, I do. I really do understand where it's coming from. I can be quite guilty of wanting to go to a million different places in very little time just because I'm excited and I want to travel as much as I can, but it's not, you're not going to see the place, you're not going to really experience the place. You're going to be there like, oh yeah, tick off the list, next place. You're just literally going to be ticking places off your list, even if that's not your intention. That is ultimately what you will be doing. Of course, it does take time to travel between places, and it is quite taxing, it is quite tiring when you're on the go constantly. You might roll your eyes at me for this next one, but please, please, please take care of yourself, especially if you're visiting in the summer. Make sure you are well hydrated, make sure you're wearing your sun cream, you have a hat, you're wearing protective clothing, protect yourself against the sun. I think a lot of people forget how damaging the sun can be, and how quickly, because also you don't realize that you're in the sun for too long and suddenly you have heat stroke or you're sunburn or so on. Going back to the itinerary, I do think there is an art of balancing planning and being spontaneous. What I would like to tell you is to be completely spontaneous, and yeah. However, realistically, in Europe, in summer, that is not going to work, and it's going to be super expensive. So it is best in Europe for you to plan things a couple of weeks in advance at least, I would say. Have a rough itinerary of what you would like to do. However, I do think that you will benefit if you're doing a backpacking trip sort of thing, or if you're traveling around, if you're interrailing, that sort of thing. I do think that you will enjoy it a little bit more if you have some flexibility. So if you want to be spontaneous, go for it. I do recommend though booking a little bit in advance. And then if you are a planner, if you love to plan, I would say that all good, that definitely works for Europe, but I would say maybe give yourself some extra time, because you never know. I always find that if I budget a few extra days here and there, I always find that really helpful, because then I can, you know, when I'm traveling, I learn about places that I had never heard of before, that I end up visiting, and I never regret it. But you do need to give yourself some flexibility to be able to do that. Something else that you can do if you do want to have everything booked in advance but still want to have some flexibility, I would say book like hostels and hotels that have a free cancellation policy, or just be aware of like up until when you can cancel and still get a refund and change your plans. I would recommend having a rough plan of where you want to go, especially if you're on the more spontaneous side of things and you don't want to make an itinerary for like every single hour of your journey. Totally understandable. I'm quite similar. I prefer to have things happen as they come, but also a bit of a plan does help. It gives you some direction. It can be more cost effective as well because you can travel in a logical direction that will be cheaper rather than going from here, there and everywhere and it being all over the place. From the perspective of a European, the big European cities, the capitals and also other big cities, in the summer, it's a no. It's a no for me. Obviously each to their own, but most Europeans tend to leave or want to leave the cities for some period of time during the summer. This is because it gets really stuffy. I mean, there's not that much to do summer-wise activities, like everyone wants to go to nature, to the beach, to quieter places to relax, and you don't really get that in cities. Yeah, so we all kind of try to avoid the big cities in the summer, if I'm being completely honest. That being said, I do understand that if you're coming from somewhere else, if you're not from Europe and you are on a trip, maybe also if you are in Europe. So I do understand that you probably do want to see some of the bigger cities as well. So for your cases, I would recommend doing a bit of a mix. However, yeah, just bear in mind it does get super busy. It's full of tourists, of course, for good reason as well. I'm not going to say it's a bad thing. I don't want to be negative. I don't want to ruin this for you. However, I would focus also on seeing other places as well that are not just, you know, the capital cities. Train passes. Interrailing obviously is a big popular way of seeing Europe. I've never interrailed personally. I've never gotten an interrail pass, so I can't really sit here and tell you whether it's worth it or not. I can't tell you do or don't do it. I know a lot of Europeans that have done it and that have had a really good time. That being said, I do think that it's a different pass for Europeans and if you're not from Europe. But my point is that train passes, I would say, are probably worth it depending on where you're going, right? If you are traveling to Greece, I can tell you firsthand, a train pass is absolutely not worth it. Don't get a train pass for Greece. The railway system in Greece, I would say, is quite underdeveloped and most cities aren't even connected. It's much easier to travel by bus if you're on the mainland or by ferry if you are traveling to different islands. I know it's similar for other countries in the Balkans and Eastern Europe in general. It is definitely worth looking into different options for traveling if you're on a bit of a budget, and by traveling I mean transport. There's many different coach companies that travel around Europe. Flixbus is a major one. I'm pretty sure most people have heard of Flixbus. Otherwise, you can look at country-specific ones. For example, I think here in Sweden, Bus for You. I think it's specific to Sweden. I don't think I've seen it before. Not every European country uses the euro. Okay, I've had this question many times. To me, it's quite obvious, but it's not to everyone, and I don't expect you to know it. But yeah, just bear in mind. Also, some countries you will benefit having cash. In Greece, for example, most places nowadays do take card. However, it is always good to carry some cash with you. If you are using card, a lot of places, most places in Europe, I would say, take card nowadays. However, be aware that not everywhere accepts American Express. I've seen so many people make this mistake. They go to restaurants and stuff, they eat, and then they want to pay with Amex, and it doesn't work. You might want to ask if they take Amex beforehand, or of course, if you have another way of payment, that's fine. I just know that a lot of people want to use their Amex and they can't in certain places, so just keep that in mind because it might be an issue. The next one is not really a pleasant one, and I don't want to like bring you down or stress you out, but it is something that I feel like it would be wrong of me to make this video without including, and that is quite a common problem in European cities is pickpockets. All the big ones, of course, all the big cities, of course, like Paris, Rome, London, Athens as well. It is an issue, it is a risk. So just make sure you have your belongings close to you. Don't flash like your fancy phone, your money and stuff around all the time. Just practice basic safety. 9 times out of 10 it's completely okay and you're fine. However, it is a little bit of a risk in certain places. Stay clear from any of the big scams. There's like very common scams like people giving you flowers and then they will take payment, or the bracelets. There's so many of these, so just look out for it. Touch wood, I haven't had any issues with pickpockets in a very long time, but it's not unheard of. So just keep it in mind. Don't let it stress you out too much, but awareness will save you. And then finally, to end on a little bit more positive note, let's talk discounts. So you can get discounts on certain things. If you're interrailing, I believe, I could be wrong, I haven't interrailed myself, but I have heard that if you're interrailing, you are entitled to discounts at certain places. There's a lot of free walking tours in many cities. I definitely think that these are worth taking advantage of. I would recommend tipping the tour guides. Also, a lot of hostels organise like different tours. If you're under 25 or if you are a student, you might be eligible to certain discounts. Now, these do typically apply to European citizens. If you're a student though, it might be worth checking if you're eligible. You've got nothing to lose. Like it's a 50-50 chance, honestly. They might give you a discount, they might not, but you have nothing to lose by asking. I really hope you enjoy your trip to Europe if you are visiting. If you would like to see recommendations for things to do in Europe, I do have a playlist called European Adventures, so make sure to check that out after this video to get some inspiration for your trip.